And we're back here once again with another episode of the MSK show. And this is going to be episode 18. And this is going to be another segment of Content Creator Spotlight presenting X person. And the person that will be on this segment of Content Creator Spotlight presenting is Mr. Bob, aka Was It Good, actually. Now, initially, when I just went to your channel, I thought it was gonna be like some sex parody, because you know how like when girls always like tell their friends like, "Hey, did you have sex with that guy?" And they ask like, "Was it good?" You know, you might have something there if you actually lean into that. Honestly, that would be the biggest joke. Is people go like, "Did he get that name like from like a girl when she was questioning it like after having sex with him? Like, was it good?" To be fair, wouldn't be the worst thing if people knew you for that, right? So
Yeah,
nice to meet you,
probably
man. How you
not.
doing?
I'm doing okay. How you doing tonight?
I'm old. I just got off work and I think I'm dead. So yeah, usual Monday. Yeah,
No,
I'm
I
just
hear
helping you
you.
out.
I got off work a couple hours ago, so I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, usually when you get off work, I mean, back in the day, I used to just do a bunch of videos and content. Now I have to take a nap and get ready because my mind is just not able to actually physically put it all together anymore. But let's start here since this is your first appearance on the show, which is how was your life growing up, actually?
Well, heavy-headed question. No, like growing up, I mean, everything. Grew up normal childhood, I guess. No, nothing really that I can think of out of the ordinary. Played
Mhm.
football while I was in high school. Got married pretty young, actually. Got married at
Oh
19.
wow,
Yeah, I
really?
got married at 19.
You still
Married
married?
for no, actually, I was married for 11 years. Not anymore, but I do have 5 kids with my ex-wife. So,
You ever heard of the protection plan?
well, it's kind of funny the way that worked out because my ex and I supposedly couldn't have kids, so we
Yeah.
adopted 3, and 3 months after we adopted, she got pregnant with the first one.
Oh, okay. So the 3 kids, they call you dad, the ones that you
Yeah,
adopted. What
yeah,
were the age range of the kids you adopted? Were they like 7, like 1 to 8, that range, or
yeah. No,
teenagers
the
actually?
The oldest was 6 years old, the next one, he was, 3, and the youngest was 2, and,
Dang,
again, those are the ages of the adopted kids when we adopted them,
that's
and they're
crazy.
much older now, like, at this point, my oldest, she's 24 now, so
She's 24. Holy crap!
yeah.
And you had her since she was 6.
Yes.
Okay, that's awesome, man. Yeah, man, that's great. That's a thing where like I don't really want kids myself, but if I ever did, I would probably just go and adopt one, honestly, because why have sex with women? That's pretty gross, actually. I heard
Yeah,
that you got to
terrible.
take the manufactured women now these days. So, growing up, did the kids ever like meet their actual like parents at all? Were they ever trying to be involved with the kids' life at all?
Well, they knew their actual birth family, by the time we adopted them, they were already aware of them, so that
Oh,
wasn't
okay.
really anything new to them. I mean, like, they came into the home already knowing they were adopted, so
Okay. It wasn't like weird them calling you dad and they know their real dad is technically not there. They don't
no,
have to
no,
be
no, it
like,
wasn't weird at all.
okay. Oh wow, so they're all older now. Like, do you guys have that conversation in high school where like they're like and maybe like they were sick one day, like call your dad and you look kind of different from them, and the person was like,
No,
"What?"
no, we never really had that conversation, but, uh, my my ex-wife is lily white. I'm, half Hispanic, half white, and my kids are dark Hispanic, and I
Mhm.
remember this one day we were walking in the store, and we had, this is when they were still young, we had one of them walking next to us and one in the cart, sitting up in
Mhm.
the front, and people were looking at us like we owed a daycare or something like that, trying to figure out, uh, the connection there, 'cause, it's like, these kids don't look like them. So what's going on here? But
Did you find the experience of just being an adopted dad pretty like intense or stressful at all? Because you said you
it
got them when they were
has it.
young, so that was like 2 to 6 years old. That's crazy. That means one of
Well,
them would be like barely in kindergarten or preschool at that point.
yeah, well, it was a challenge because not only did oh, did we get them at the ages that we got them at, but like I said,
Mhm,
3 months after we
mhm.
adopted, we ended up getting pregnant with one more. So we ended up with, you know 4 different kids at all different ages, and so we had to try to learn how to raise them all at different ages. And so that was a little bit of a challenge. And then just, of course, there's always an adjustment period when it comes to adoption. And we worked through that, but I'd be lying if I said it wasn't there.
So, because most people like will say just like adopt kids. What's the process of actually adopting a kid? Is it like really as bad as people say? Is it like one of those like you got to go through background checks? You got to go through like make sure your home's not gonna explode if you turn on the
Well,
stove.
there are a lot of that. You do have the background checks. They do come into the home to inspect it to make sure everything is good. You have to have like a fire safety inspection. You have people come in and actually check the home, but it also depends on the avenue that you go through the adoption. For example, we actually adopted through the foster system, so it was a
Oh,
little bit different than if you went through, say, an adoption agency or
mm,
something like that. So literally, our kids, they were foster children, and we adopted them from the foster family.
mhm,
And so it was just a little bit different process than, say, if you'd gone through an international agency
mhm.
or something like that.
Well, I'm glad it all worked out, man. Seems like you really enjoyed your time with the kids, honestly. And it's isn't it weird? Just they're all older now. They're probably looking at you like, man, now I can leave.
You know what? It is weird. Um, I was actually talking to my oldest the other day, and it just kind of hit me that, oh my gosh, she's 24, was visiting with her and her boyfriend, and
Mhm,
it's just kind of surreal that they're adults now. And
mhm,
even the biological kids, because I got two of them, they're
mhm.
all older as well. Like the oldest of those two is 17,
Oh
and
my
then the
god.
youngest is 15. So it's not like they're babies either. So
Mhm.
it is kind of strange
Are
having
they at
older
that
kids.
age where like they don't really talk to you as much? They're just kind of like on their video games and and phones or some shit.
You know what? For that age group, yeah, my 17 and 15-year-old, yeah, they do have their video games and stuff that they like to do. But it's weird now because my 17-year-old, he's now working, and so now that he's working, I really only have the one that is not too
Okay,
busy to come over and visit. So
so in your area, because it's Halloween this month, so it'd be like, what's the age cutoff for trick or treating in your area? Ours is 18. So your 15-year-old's like, hey dad, can I go out trick or treating?
you know what? He didn't. I don't know if he's going to do it this year, but I remember him doing it not last year, but the year before at
Mhm.
13, and
Okay.
he was all excited to go. And my daughter at the time, she was 18, I believe, my youngest daughter,
Yeah.
and she went trick or treating with him. She's like, "Oh, let's go!" And so she took a bag with her so she could go ahead and get a bunch of the candy as well. But
Man, those were some of the funnest times when I was a kid. I remember just getting a bag and just going to people's strangers' house to ask for candy. I don't know how that became a tradition at all. You go to a stranger's house one day of the year asking for their candy. Good lord, man.
I will
Times
say
of being young.
I had more fun trick or treating with the kids as an adult, and going with them and watching them enjoy than I did as a kid. I mean, because you're seeing it through a different set of eyes, and so it was something that I just really enjoyed.
Hmm.
And I also had more fun when you'd go up to those houses that had all the little haunted houses and stuff like that, and somebody would be
Yeah,
out there
yeah.
trying to scare the kids. So it
Yeah,
was a lot
some
more
people
fun watching
really
your
went.
kids get scared.
Yeah, yeah. It's so cool when the owner like really goes all out and makes it like a super interesting experience, you know? Or like they'll set it up and then they'll have like a mechanical hand grab it and give the candy out. That's God man, that's why I like Halloween. It's that's my Christmas of the year. It's so fun. I love dressing up. Obviously my YouTube anniversaries in October, coming up in 8 days on October 15th. I started doing content creation 9 years ago in
Wow,
2015, actually. So yeah, I love October. It's my favorite month of the entire year.
there you
But
go.
moving forward, so do like not YouTube. Let's go with that because you're
Okay.
on YouTube now.
Yes.
What made you want to do YouTube? Were you inspired from somebody?
Yes, actually. My significant other that I've been with for a little while now, she had been pushing me to do YouTube, just saying, "Hey, you know what? There's opportunity there, and you enjoy talking about movies. You enjoy doing that. Why don't you do something there to do on the side to have fun with?" And so, at first, I kept saying no because I was
Mhm.
well, still am working two jobs, and I
You always
didn't
work two jobs?
shouldn't say always, but I like having the extra money. I work
It
as a
does help.
nurse,
I
and
will say
so
that extra money
yeah,
can never be a bad thing, especially given the economy the way it is right now.
yeah. It's simply I like the extra money, but I work as a nurse, and so I was doing the two different jobs, and she had been asking me to do something, and so I finally, about a year after her asking, a friend of mine, he came up to me and another friend and said, "Hey, why don't we start a podcast together?" And so we ended up starting a podcast that's on another channel that we have, that's a group channel. But when I made the decision to do that, I said, well, you know what? Why don't I go ahead and just start my own channel as well? And so I started my own channel in mid February, actually, a little bit before we started the group channel. And I've been doing this since mid February. And the channel's
February of this year,
growing.
right?
What's that?
February of this year or
Yeah,
last
February
year?
of this year.
Oh,
So
okay. So you only been you only been doing content creation for about less than 6 months, actually.
yeah, something like that. And I'm up to 830 subscribers. I've had a couple of videos go over 30,000 views.
Yeah, back in the day. So, my original main channel was taken down for hate speech and bullshit like that. I had a channel almost at 4,000 subs throughout my very first 10 year of YouTube. So this channel was always for like League of Legends content. And then I
Uh-huh.
rebranded this one into my main one. And the way to do content now on YouTube is so different compared to how you did it back in the day. It was just, I never had a video do 30,000 views. The highest viewed videos I ever had did 12, almost 12K, and 2 or 10K. And the other ones were like 8,000, sometimes 5,000. But my average consistent level was around like 300, 400 views. That's where I kind of want to be at. When I get back into like that consistent range, you got to reach consistency, because
Right.
what I always tell people when they first start is it's not really about, because the thing about quality content is such a disingenuous thing when like a person would say that, because quality to someone is going to vary depending on who you talk to and whose opinion you actually value in terms of like what they perceive as quality content.
Right.
So it's the biggest thing that gets people to subscribe to a channel is consistency. That's
Right.
always the thing. If you can put out consistently good content, not quality, consistently good content that a person can enjoy, that's what makes someone come. Because if someone is consistently good at something, you value that over time. I feel like you. I don't know if you watch sports at all, but you know
Yes.
the players that are always consistently good are always the one that are like always highly regarded. Well, if you're like consistently really good at something, people are gonna value that at a certain point over like someone that, they might have put out a good video once a month, but it's like, unless that video is really, really fucking good, no one's gonna care, honestly.
Right.
That's the thing with new people, is that people don't understand. It's not really about the sub. The sub number is gonna be low, and that might discourage you. You just gotta push through it, because like that. The problem right there is a lot of people, new people, don't understand, dude. Is adversity. If the first hurdle of adversity is you sad because your subscriber number is low, you weren't cut out for this anyway. That's
Right.
the that's what made you stop. Your sub number was low. Holy shit! Oh god, man. Huh.
No, I know what you're talking about. Like I said, I've had a couple go over 30,000, but then, for example, I put out a video the other day where I was lucky that I got 50, 60 views. And
Yeah, I know. I know the feeling.
and
Yeah.
and to me, it's not really a big deal. Because at the end of the day, like you said, it is consistency. I always hope that at least I can get 1 or 2 subscribers off of a video. If I don't, I don't. But you know what? I made an attempt to get a video out on that particular content,
Mhm.
hoping that it turned out to be something that was positive. And what's funny is that it's the ones that I least expect that to hit are the ones that end up doing well, and then the ones that I think are going to do well, or I
It's always
put
gonna
in
be
this a
that.
lot of effort
No,
into, those are the ones that just
pointing out,
crash and burn.
that's always gonna happen. The
Yeah.
ones that you put your heart, soul, and fucking blood into, those ones will do like okay. The one video, I'm not saying like the ones people do are half-ass. The ones that you didn't think were gonna hit are the ones that hit. It's always been the thing. I was
Right.
like, damn. I was running it down in those popular videos that I had on my original old channel that's gone. I ran it down so hard. I was sprinting my ass off in those videos. Those were bad. I was like, damn, these are my highest viewed videos. These are awful. There was the one that really went big that I really liked, but I was like, damn. Because I hope that I was gonna be someone where, like, if I have a big video like that, like, in my head, that it made a lot of people subscribe, because I don't want my highest viewed video coming up whenever in the future to be a video that I think is bad.
Right.
I want that to be a quality, impressionable video. You could be like, okay, I'll give the person a chance. Nowadays, it's so hard to get someone to subscribe to a channel. They're
Right.
just watching because they're just watching. Subscribing is not even like a thing in their mind anymore.
Right. No, like for example, I put out a video on the movie Horizon, that Kevin Costner Western that came out in
Mm.
June. And I ended up getting over 39,000 views on that. And that's not a movie that exactly people were talking about or anything like that, but it just took off. I don't know if maybe because there weren't as many people reviewing it or what the case was, but it went off. And then you flip that with, say, I just put out a review a few days ago of Joker, of the new Joker movie, and
Yeah, I'll be watching
got
it on
120
Wednesday.
views on that.
I'll be watching Joker on Wednesday.
Oh,
yeah. So I'm watching. So I get off work, come home, rest, do my one-on-one, and then I have to go see Joker 2. I do the series called Full Day of Going to the Movie Theater. So I haven't did an episode in that series since Alien Romulus. I was gonna go see the one with the Channing Tatum Island movie. It looked really interesting.
Oh yeah, Blink Twice. Yeah, that one was okay.
I was so tired. Because I went to movies consecutively. I started that series because this series I did my older channel, but I want to bring it back and do it in a much more better way. So I started it with Deadpool Wolverine. Then I watched Trap. Then I watched Borderlands. Then I watched It Ends With Us. And then I watched Alien Romulus. So this is the next
saw most
movie
of those, I think, except Borderlands.
God, you don't need to watch Borderlands. It's pretty bad.
Do you know what it was? I kept hearing everybody talk about how bad Borderlands was. And so I ended up going to see It Ends With Us instead. And I was
I had more. There was a lot of girls. There was a lot of girls were watching.
I actually kind of enjoyed that one. So
it's crazy, dude. Did you have more girls than guys? I had my screening. There was like at least it was like 19 girls in there, and I was like the 20th. I was like the only guy in there. I was like, man, a lot of dudes in here.
Yeah, that I kind of thought the same thing. I mean, it was nothing but ladies in that screening, except a couple of guys that were brought along by their significant other. And I was there simply just to review it. And the reason I went is, because again, Borderlands I heard was so bad. But a coworker of mine, she read the book and she knows I do this on the side, and so she said, "Hey, you should go review this one." So I decided to check it out, and I'm glad I saw that as opposed to Borderlands.
Yeah, so that was a movie where I get people have that's a really weirdly divisive movie only because of the material in it. Because I think movies like that, if a person has ever went through a situation like that, then that movie would honestly be like probably very good to them. But if you've never went through something like that, you're just gonna think the movie's stupid. So that's why I wouldn't really call it good or bad. I would just call it divisive. Because it really just depends on if you've went through this. That's all it depends on. Because if you haven't, that's going to shape your mindset for the movie. What I really enjoyed, what the director did, Justin Baldoni, he directed that movie very good. I will say that. I'll say the atmosphere, the pacing was actually pretty good. The only things that I didn't like was certain story elements. Overall, I didn't have a bad impression of watching it. I was like, damn. The main cast outside of him and Blake Lively are just bad.
Yeah. Like the leads were pretty good for the most part. And it's not a movie that I would go watch again. But for a one-time viewing, I was like, yeah, okay. You know what? It was, I could think of worse things to do for 2 hours of my time.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed how he used flashbacks in the movie. I don't feel like most movies now utilize flashbacks as much as they can, or like maybe flash forwards, because in the movie, the flashbacks like at least explained a lot of more context to what's going on. And imagine the movie without flashbacks, that would be probably pretty bad, right? So it sucks that we're probably not going to get a sequel to that movie because, Blake Lively and him do not obviously get along. And unless she is recasted, they can't do another one because he bought the rights to use the book, and obviously it made Sony a lot of money, so he's gonna obviously have most of the say. And I don't even know if she signed a contract where like they'd have to pay her out to get rid of her to cast another female lead to play her, and it's like she's not gonna do that, unless some miracle happens. That's when you get a sequel out of that movie.
At the end of the day, as much as I hate to say it, money talks for a lot of this, so you never know. Maybe they'll put the differences aside for money. So
maybe they'll secretly talk to Ryan Reynolds and be like, "Hey, Ryan, bang her so hard one night, she has to take our offer." I'm not gonna lie. That has either that or we're never getting a sequel to that movie, which I think a sequel would be nice and wrap it up. There's no reason not to do it, but it just depends on what they're gonna do with their situation. Honestly,
which you mentioned something earlier or a moment ago about the flashbacks. One thing that I liked that the film did is that it left the scenes where she was getting abused or whatnot. It left it kind of ambiguous as far as it looked like, okay, I don't really see what he did wrong there. And it wasn't until you got those flashbacks that clarified it. But I kind of liked how they kept it ambiguous until those moments that they revealed
Yeah,
what
he kept
really
you
happened.
guessing. He kept you. I really enjoyed his directing style. He was really
Yeah.
talented. He really showed you that there were certain scenes where you didn't know if he really did it, but
Yes.
then later on it was clarified in a moment that it was trying to make sure the scene was playing out in a much more impactful way that he actually did do this. But maybe it's a character where like they suddenly convinced themselves that they didn't do it, and I,
Yes,
like
and that's
yeah.
exactly what I thought, is that she
Mhm.
is since we were seeing it through her eyes, she had convinced herself that it didn't happen, and so she had convinced
Yeah.
herself this is in fact what happened. It's not that he hit me, I actually fell down the stairs, or, she convinced it that herself of that, and so
Mhm.
I liked the way that they handled that and how they revealed it later, so I thought that was kinda unique about the film.
The other thing to talk about is Star Wars. I don't know if you
Oh,
are interested. You've probably been watching Star Wars for a very long time. How do you feel about Star Wars now, given
this
everything
is
that's happened?
okay, where do I begin? Okay, let me start with The Acolyte sucks. It sucked bad.
You
When it
watch
comes to
that? Oh shit, that's crazy.
yeah, well, I watched it because I reviewed it for both my channel and then my friends and I on our
Mhm.
group channel. We ended up talking about it, and I when it comes to Star Wars, it's sad the current state of it because I think when Disney bought it, everything was gift wrapped for them. It was it's almost impossible for them to fumble it as bad as they did. I mean, they had anticipation because it had been or by the time The Force Awakens released, it had been 10 years since the previous film, and you had the original cast back. And there was a ton of goodwill and everything. And even The Force Awakens, yes, it's got a lot of problems, especially when you look back at it in spite of the sequels. But when it first came out, you can't deny that it was a hit, and most people were genuine or generally happy with it. And Rogue One itself also was a big hit. And then, of course, we got The Last Jedi, we got The Rise of Skywalker, we got Solo, we got all of that. And everything really just started going downhill. And the problem I got with Star Wars is that you've got people who are running it that are activists first, as opposed to movie makers being first. They're so
Yeah,
focused on messaging that they prioritize that ahead of good storytelling. I actually have no problems with messaging because I understand at the end of the day, a lot of people want a film to say something, but the biggest issue I have is when you prioritize that ahead of good storytelling, because
mhm.
when you do, the story ends up suffering, and what you get is a film or a TV show or something that's overly preachy. It's heavy-handed with politics, and you can just see that that nobody behind it really cares about the product itself or the IP. All they care about is the messages, and that's where Star Wars is at right now. You just got a bunch of people that's all they care about.
I think the other big problem now at this point is potentially Disney might be having some shifting going on. We've heard some rumblings that the Ray Solo movie that they were planning on putting out in 2026 might be, let's just say for the lack of word, canceled,
Yeah,
actually.
that's what I've heard.
Even though they would say it's I don't know, some what's the professional lingo that they use? Like
It's on hold, or
on hold.
it's
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Yeah,
kind of like
instead of just
Ryan
saying we
Johnson's
canceled
trilogy.
it, instead of just saying we canceled this because it's we couldn't do this because it's a trash idea, it's on hold. And I've always told people this too. I don't think her acting was good. People say, well, I don't think she was that bad. Her acting is bad. Daisy Ridley. People are veteran. I saw her in a show called Switched at Birth before
Mhm.
she was ever in Star Wars. I remember her. She played the girlfriend of this rich guy's kids, and she had an autistic kid with the one rich guy, the rich dad's son. And her acting was just so bad. Her acting is not good. I really don't know why people didn't criticize her acting. It's a pathetic performance. Like she was attempting to make emotion and it was just failing. I think the only time I think she ever gave effort was in the first movie. It looked like she was trying to come up with some way to act. I was just not believing her acting at all. Now I understand that people were criticizing the character, but her acting is just bad. Like when people tell me, "Oh, I don't think she was that bad. She had nothing to work with," which is such a crock of shit because I've known plenty of actors given horrible scripts, horrible movies, and you're like, you know what? Movie sucked, but at least that performance was good. Even in terrible X-Men movies, Hugh Jackman's performance as Wolverine was awesome.
You're
Even
not
in
wrong there.
even in bad movies like Iron Man 2 is not as good as the first one, or Iron Man 3. Robert Downey Jr. still puts a quality performance, even though the movies around him is pretty bad. There's plenty. Samuel Jackson, it's a known guy where he'll put out a quality performance, even though the movie around him is pretty bad, i.e. Jumper. That movie fucking stinks. She's just... Mm-hmm.
Well, I was going to say, Daisy Ridley didn't bother me in the first film, but I will say this, that it's not because she's at least from her performances there. It's not that she gave a great acting performance or anything. I don't particularly think that Mark Hamill gave great acting performances either, but I think that with a competent director and a competent script, I think they can do a lot more and they can work with it better, and they can hide some of those deficiencies because, at the end of the day, despite Mark Hamill's deficiencies, he still played an iconic character that went down in history as an iconic character. And I'm not saying that Ray would have done that with the proper director and script, but I think that would have helped a lot, and it would have helped cover some of the deficiencies because you would have had somebody competent behind the camera actually making this thing. And I don't think that was the case. I think they cast, or they picked the hottest director that they could think of at the first one with J.J. Abrams, and then God only knows what he did.
He's and the biggest overrated hack ever, man. He's so overrated, dude. He only did Lost and Mission Impossible 3. That's it.
I like Mission Impossible 3, so I gotta give.
I'll give him that. That was actually pretty fucking good.
Yeah,
I know people. My mom used to, before my mom passed, she loved watching Lost. She had all the seasons on DVD. I never got into Lost like that. Other people did. I know what the ending, obviously. The only movie I've ever seen that guy do good to me was just Mission Impossible 3. I think he's just the most overrated piece of shit ever. Remember, like a few years ago, Warner Brothers gave his company like $200 million to produce like DC content.
I think it was more, actually. I think it was last figure I heard was it was $500 million that they gave him,
and he gave them nothing.
Nothing. The only thing I think that he produced that came out was that new Batman animated series that came out over on Amazon. Yeah, and I thought that was garbage.
Yeah, he's such a piece of shit. Like, I don't understand. Like, I don't know why people think he's good. I don't know why he keeps getting jobs. I don't know how he got all that money. That man got the bag for doing nothing. That's the reason why Warner Bros. Deserves to fail, if not anything else. They gave a guy $200 million to do nothing.
Yeah, because you're not wrong. I mean, he didn't actually release anything. He was supposed to oversee this DC kind of revival and
kind of content, right? He was supposed to do Constantine. He was supposed to do content based off like Lucifer, all that kind of like supernatural stuff. Nothing came out. Absolutely nothing.
Yeah, no, he didn't actually produce anything. Like I said, the only thing I can think of was that Batman show, and at the end of the day, Max didn't want to show it, and that's how it ended up over on Amazon. And I understand, it was not good. There were a couple things in it that I kind of liked. Like, I thought the second episode wasn't too bad with Clayface. I thought that one was okay, but the gender swap of the Penguin I thought was awful. The way they did Harley Quinn I thought was really bad. What they did to Two-Face at the end of the show and just killed him off. I was like, I can't not believe that you did this and you killed him off. What a stupid decision on that. I just can't understand what they were doing with that show.
Because do you remember when David Zaslav took over Warner Brothers? He was basically, he didn't want to have a bunch of content on Max that no one was watching.
Right.
Oh, mostly just taking shots at Netflix because, Netflix does that. I knew what he was saying. No one else caught it, but I did. I caught you, David Zaslav. And I agree with him. There's no reason to have a bunch of that content on your streaming service no one's watching because you have to pay a lot of money people to keep it. So he got the bag selling that show off to Amazon because it's Batman. They're going to want, who wouldn't want Batman to be a part of their streaming catalog? That man probably got $200 million just for selling off some bullshit. He canceled Batgirl. He did cancel Batgirl. A race swapped Batgirl he canceled. Good job. No one wanted to watch that.
What's sad, from what I've heard other content creators talk about, that Batgirl actually scored higher on test screenings than The Flash. And what was the other one that came out?
Black Adam.
Black Adam. It scored higher than those. And yet they ended up shelving that one.
We saw how bad Black Adam and The Flash was.
So Flash was just awful. I was, and it wasn't just bad as far as the
Mhm.
story goes. We're talking it was also bad from a visual
Characterizations.
standpoint.
Yeah.
The special effects on that thing were horrible. How could you spend that much money on this and it look the way that it did?
Well, remember that movie had gone through many delays and
Right.
revisions because remember that movie went into production the same year that the Flash season 1 TV show came out,
That's
and
true.
and it finally dropped in what 2023. Actually,
Yeah,
it dropped, and oh my god, it's crazy because the Flash TV series ended that year as well. So I guess it was kind of like a long journey to get there. I always said Grant Gustin was better. People
absolutely.
literally said he couldn't act. I'm like, you're stupid. He could definitely play Barry Allen. He's clearly did it for 9 years, and people always said it wasn't his fault. It's literally not his fault that show went to the garbage can. He was always putting out a quality performance. The only
Absolutely.
issue with Grant would be like obviously his hair is not blonde, but obviously you could easily fix that for a live action appearance. That's not like I like comic accuracy, but that's not something that I would be like super mad at if they chose to keep. He played
Right.
a great Flash. He
No,
first of
I
all,
thought he did.
his show had a reverse Flash. He had a Gorilla Grodd. He had everything in that first season.
Yeah, when it comes to those CW shows, the
Yeah.
first 2 seasons of Arrow I thought were really good.
Mhm.
And the Flash, fed right off of that success, by coming out
Yeah.
right after that. And that first season of Flash was extremely good.
That
Those
might be one of the best like DC TV seasons ever. I have
Yeah,
that up there. It's like that's so peak. And it had no business being that good either. It was
yeah.
just like that's supposed to be just Arrow spinoff. Well, we'll see what happens. And it came out just absolutely amazing. I
Yeah,
still go
it
back
was
and watch it from time to time. It's so good.
yeah, it was very good. I enjoyed that first season. Now it started falling off a cliff pretty quick, but
What season for you did it do that? I think it was
you know
season
what?
3.
For me, I watched all the way up all the all the Arrowverse
Mhm.
shows, all the way up until the Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover. I
Yeah.
What they ended up doing to Superman on that.
Smallville.
Oh
Right.
yeah, like when they brought
Yeah.
Tom Welling back just to do what they did with him, and then like I spent 10 years journeying with Tom Welling to see him
Yeah.
get his powers. And then the very next time I see him, you're telling me he gave up his powers? I'm like, that is
Yeah.
absolutely ridiculous.
That's
And
how
then
you know these guys didn't understand that character. He would
yeah, and
never do that.
then they bring Brandon Routh back
Yeah.
as the Superman he played in Superman Returns, which I mean, granted, it's the Kingdom Come Superman,
Yeah.
but he's supposed to be the same Superman from
Yeah.
Superman Returns. And for them to just get rid of it the way that they did, also, I was like, you gotta be kidding me. And then they also what they did with Kevin Conroy's Batman.
Mhm.
I was just so upset by that
Mhm.
I refused to watch all of the shows anymore. And what's funny about that is that Arrow had like 3 episodes left to go. After that point, I didn't even watch the last 3 episodes of Arrow. I was so mad at Crisis on Infinite Earths that I couldn't even finish Arrow. But I
What
stopped
I
watching Flash after that point too.
what I ended up doing, so I had stopped watching The Flash after season 3 because I felt like season 3 was a pretty big letdown compared to the first 2 seasons, actually.
That was
And
the
then I
season with
Savitar.
yes, thank you.
It had its high points. I definitely liked it at some points, but it was such a slog to get through compared to the other ones. Like you might back in the day, these shows were 22 episode slog
Right.
fest sometimes. So if you got a bad show, you were like, damn, this is just dragging on and on. And then at a certain point, I finished. I went back to the show. I watched season 4. That's the one with the Thinker. I didn't think that
Yes.
was that bad, but I didn't think it was great. I thought it was just meh, honestly. I enjoyed season 5. I actually liked season 5. And then season 6, I was like, this is pretty bad. And
Was
that's
season 6 the one where they brought on
it was
his
like
daughter?
Blood Villain.
Was that
No,
which
season
one?
5 was when they brought in Nora.
Okay,
Actually.
so okay, I'm just trying to remember because I didn't go back and rewatch any of them because like I said, after Crisis, I was just like, okay, I'm done.
I didn't
Uh,
actually watch the individual shows. I was only just a fan of the Flash. I watched the individual Crisis episodes from their show. I just looked up where it took
right.
place. I saw the whole thing and I was like, wow, this is
Yeah,
I guess I can respect the effort that you tried it, but man, that was just bad.
see, and I
Like,
did watch the individual shows. The one that was the dumbest was Legends. But
oh yeah, that I don't know how people watch that show for years and years. I never liked the idea of it getting a show. It just looked goofy as fuck every single time I would check in. Like a few of the characters there I liked here and there, but there was the one actor that I thought always did well throughout the Flash was Tom Cavanaugh, who played Reverse
yes,
Flash throughout. Man, just talk about quality performance, and it's so cringe when fans go like, "Well, he was just on a TV show." What does that even mean? So does that mean because you're on TV, because you're even if you put out a quality performance, it means you just considered less because you're not in the movies? Like such cringe, snobbish things people say, which makes no sense. So I always ask people, is it a good performance or not?
Yeah, I've seen some actors that put on better performances when they're on television as opposed to when they're in a movie.
And they get looked down upon because it's just on TV. It's like, what the fuck does that even mean?
Like an actor that comes to mind, Kiefer Sutherland. Kiefer Sutherland, I think he's a great actor, but he's known for playing Jack Bauer on 24 because that was his iconic performance. It was a television performance, and he will always be associated with that character. Doesn't matter all the good performance he's put on screen in the movies. I mean, yeah, he's got a few movies here and there that people think back on and remember, but not the way he's remembered for this iconic television role that he played.
Do you think Disney at this point is going to course correct on something? It looks like with the MCU, there might be some cracks in there. Star Wars, I think, might potentially happen because if the rumors that come out are true and they're kind of just canceling everything, they might actually be turning the tune on some things.
Okay.
I'll have to believe it when I see it, kind of thing. Marvel, yes. It looks more like it's happening, but Star Wars, I have to literally be like, you have to show me like you're trying to change.
Yeah, I agree with you. I do think Marvel's showing some effort at course correcting. And then every now and then they'll do something else stupid that leads me to believe that no, they're not. But you look at say the trailer for the new Captain America. I mean, it's not anything I'm excited about, but it does look like it's but it doesn't look bad. And then you look at the trailer for Thunderbolts again.
I liked it. I thought it was good.
I wasn't. It wasn't anything that convinced me, but it wasn't a trailer that I went like, oh, I can't. That's going to be horrible. I was kind of like, okay. The action looks good, and it seems like they're trying to do some course correction there. As far as Lucasfilm goes, I think Lucasfilm will double down on a few things for a little while longer. For whatever reason, Kathleen Kennedy's just got that pull that she's got, and I just see them still doubling down on some things. Now, maybe I could be wrong. Maybe behind the scenes in the boardroom, they'll make the decisions to course correct because you can only lose money for so long. But at the end of the day, I just don't. I'm like you. I got to see it first. Like the Acolyte was horrible, and them canceling it was
those shows after Obi-Wan. I told myself if Obi-Wan isn't good, I'm done. And right after that, Andor came out, so I watched Boba Fett, which was that might have been one of the worst shows I've ever seen in my entire life. And I would be hyperbolic, people. That show was actually terrible. Yeah, Obi-Wan was probably just as bad. I'm not saying something to be on that level. And I was like, you know what? If that's the quality of these shows, I would watch those. Did you watch them when they would drop at the time? We were doing watch party for these. We're watching these shows at like 12, 3 in the morning. I'm not staying up anymore watching that shit. After like the 8th time with the Marvel show, I was like, you know what? Maybe I gotta stop this.
With Obi-Wan, that was one I was extremely disappointed on because I loved Ewan McGregor's performance as Obi-Wan Kenobi in the prequels. He was always a highlight to me of those films. And this idea that you've got to bring him and Hayden Christensen back, how could you fumble that the way that they did? And it's like the way I envisioned Obi-Wan is Obi-Wan should have been a type of character study, a character study on both Obi-Wan and Vader now that they're in the positions that they're in. And if you want to have them fight, I mean, yes, I understand it breaks canon, but maybe you could do it in a way you can get away with it. Like just a good example of something you could have done that would have been interesting. In the 3rd episode, right at the beginning where they're putting Vader together, right after he got out of the back to tank, you see them putting the pieces together. You could have had flashbacks there of all of the things that he remembered badly about Obi-Wan, where Obi-Wan and him are fighting. He's ends up burning, all of those things you could see him remembering, and him screaming out, "I hate you." And then at the end where he drags Obi-Wan into the fire, then you could have had him start remembering the good things about Obi-Wan. And then he pushes him out of the fire, and it would have made sense why he pushed him out of the fire. Also, it would have made sense at the end of the show when the Emperor asked him, "Are you having conflicting feelings about your old master?" because you could have actually seen those conflicting feelings. And they missed an opportunity there. And instead, they wanted to focus on other characters that just had nothing to do with the characters that we actually tuned in for. Obi-Wan Kenobi was an extremely disappointing show, and it was a badly written show to begin with.
Oh, the other thing that happened in Obi-Wan was that it was revealed that Reva was one of the kids that basically almost got killed by Anakin during his massacre. So she knows how traumatizing that is for her. So guess what she does, guys? She goes and tries to kill Luke Skywalker as a kid. Just like, what are we doing?
Yeah, and not only that, she gets stabbed through the gut as a kid. She gets stabbed through the gut as an adult. She lives through all of this. It's just absolutely ridiculous what they did with that character. And I think the character of Reva herself could have been a decent character had they just focused on her being an inquisitor instead of wanting to make her a main character of the show.
I think the other problem with the show is that it broke canon on so many random things. Like I don't understand why they do shows like that, because the problem here with prequel shows is that I'm not opposed to them existing, but the problem that most fans will have with it, like myself, is like, well, if you already know the ending of what's going to happen with a certain character at a certain point in time with any franchise you're watching, well, then what are you going to do to create meaningful stakes to make sure that that is an interesting premise to a story you already know the ending of? That's why it's always hard doing prequels, because they're already starting off on like a back foot point of view. They're not starting from a fresh point of view for moving the story forward. So Star Wars, to me, honestly, can only do stuff in the past, which they have a lot that they can do in the past. There's plenty of great content there in the past. What I think they should have done for Disney, for Star Wars, only thing I give for Star Wars now is just Star Wars comic books. I know after Return of the Jedi, they had this story called the New Republic. They could have just did that.
Yeah,
for a trilogy.
The way I would have handled the sequels is you had the original cast. I would have made the original cast the main characters of episode 7. I would have introduced the new characters, but I would have made the main cast or the original cast the main characters. By episode 8, I would have split the screen time kind of half and half. And by episode 9, my new characters would have had the majority of the screen time, with Luke Skywalker taking on kind of the Yoda role as far as being the Jedi Master. And that way you're kind of, I don't want to say phasing them out, but you're passing the torch. A good example of how this show could have been, or these movies could have been done, is Cobra Kai. That's the blueprint right there. You start with your legacy characters and you give them the respect that they've earned, and you introduce your new characters. But if you look by the end of the first season of Cobra Kai, your new characters have just as much screen time as your legacy characters. And so I think that's the blueprint right there for reviving a franchise after so long. You had the original cast. I don't know how you fumbled it the way that they did.
Oh, I don't know if you were a fan of Dragon Ball Z growing up or
not
in
really,
your lifetime.
No, I wasn't. Not really.
Oh, so you never were a fan of like anime at all?
No,
really?
There's a. It's not something that I really follow, but there's a couple of anime stuff here and there that I'm familiar with, or somebody will tell me to check something out and I'll watch it. Like, for example, somebody told me to go check out the new Terminator anime that came out, the Terminator Zero. I really liked that. I'm kind of interested to go watching One Piece after I saw the live action version. So I just haven't had a chance to go do it yet, but I've heard the anime for that is really good. So I'd like to check that out. But
also, it's good to know you're not a weeb like us nerds out there. You're a Giga Chad, dating women, having kids, crazy.
Well, I'm real big into movies and TV shows and stuff like that. I grew up, watching sports. I'm still a big sports fan. In fact, on my on the other channel that I do with
who are your teams? Do you watch baseball, soccer, football, basketball?
Mostly football and basketball.
Okay, those are my show. Yeah, I can't. I don't mind baseball, but baseball's so boring to watch, man. Unless you're watching it in person. Baseball.
Yes, that's exactly what I was going to say. That watching it live is a much different experience than watching it on television. And I think it's more interesting when you get to the playoffs. But
because the regular season,
when it comes to sports, like I'm a big college football fan. I'm a big Florida State fan, and unfortunately we suck this year. But I am a big Florida State fan. When it comes to the pros, I just watch because I enjoy football, and I like to do a lot of fantasy sports. But basketball, same thing. I was a big Chicago Bulls fan growing up, and I kind of
the Michael Jordan era.
Yes, and I kind of lost interest once they disbanded the Bulls after Jordan and Pippen and Rodman and all of them just left, and the coach and everybody they just kind of disbanded. And I mean, I followed them, but I didn't watch it religiously. I didn't start getting back into watching it a lot until I started doing like fantasy basketball and stuff like that.
Yeah, we were experimenting with that on my previous other big podcast that I had. This year coming up, we're gonna start with an NBA style MSK show. We're gonna be talking about the games of the week and best players and all that stuff. I just want something else to watch now. You know, I had that thing too where I quit watching it for a little bit because once I feel like people don't understand, once you watch as much as we did probably for years and years, 1 year in, another year in, another year in, eventually you do kind of be like, okay, I'm taking a break. But
Yeah,
I want to
yeah,
get back into it now. You know, it sounds like I want to go back to my roots and get back into what made things happy back in the day. You know,
and
the
I
Lakers
really
are probably not winning a championship, but you know, a man can.
I actually really enjoyed watching a lot of the games this year. Just from, I mean, granted, the league's not what it used to be as far as, they used to play a lot more aggressive defense than what they do now. But I can still respect the game and the effort that everybody puts into it. And like watching, say, somebody like Jokic play. That watching him is a real treat, or watching somebody like Luca, even LeBron. I can't stand the guy, but I can't deny that he's one of
Like
the
such a
best of
piece
all
of
time,
shit, man.
and to play at such a high level that he still plays at his age. It's fun watching him. The Celtics this year, watching them play, I really enjoyed seeing them get a title and seeing Jaylen Brown kind of redeem himself after last year because a lot of people blamed him for that playoff loss, and then to be the
Yeah.
MVP of the playoffs this year, I
To be
really
fair,
liked.
Kyrie
Yeah,
Irving did say he was going to promise Boston a championship.
yeah,
Woo! Yeah.
yeah. He helped get him
Yo.
that.
Yeah. God, man, I hate when tweets like that go viral and then they come and bite someone back in the ass. Oh my God. I'll be honest, man. I don't think there's a world they don't at least make the finals this year. Like, if you're looking at their team averages from the bench, they'll average like 20, 25 points. Their players are stacked. It would be like an actual crazy upset if they weren't like even in the conference finals or at least the
Uh-huh.
actual NBA finals. Like, I would be shocked to see who can beat them. They look like they're about to just about stomp everybody because they stomped everybody in the regular season. They beat the
Yeah, they
shit out
did.
of everybody.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
did. It wasn't a fluke. Put it that way.
God, Lee. Like I was watching the Mavericks Celtics finals from this year, and I was like, man, game three, the only because the Mavericks play were just telegraphed. If it wasn't between Kyrie Irving and the other guy that was helping him out, if they weren't doing anything of lifting any points off the ground, game just fell apart. They didn't do anything.
Yeah, no, that team for Boston, they were just so stacked at every single position that there was just no way anybody was going to beat them. I mean, they played solid defense. They had great shooting. They could get inside. I mean, just their ball movement was great. So yeah, Ian, I really got into. I've gotten back into basketball over the last few years. So yeah, I never really got into anime or anything like that because I was more into movies and television and sports and things like that. Um, but I can respect it because I do think that there's some good stuff out there for the stuff
Mhm.
that people have said, hey, go check this out. I've been like, oh, you know what? That was pretty good.
Oh, actually, that's because you've been watching movies. So what would be like your top five movies of all time?
Okay. Let's see. My top all time would be Back to the Future.
Okay.
Okay, let me rephrase. These are not necessarily the best. These are my favorite.
Oh, okay.
I'll say that. Okay,
In no
so
particular order.
yeah, okay, so Back to the Future. I like The Empire Strikes Back.
Mhm.
Um, I really liked Interstellar.
Oh,
It's
okay.
not. It's funny because it's not actually Christopher Nolan's best movie, but I just really, really like that movie.
Mhm.
Um, I would say, you know, trying to think because I actually did a list of this not too long ago,
Would you have The
and
Godfather in there?
you know what, The Godfather I would consider it as one of the best of all time, but it's not necessarily one of my favorite.
Lord of the
Um,
Rings movies?
Oh yeah, you know what? The Lord of the Rings. That's actually my favorite trilogy of all time. Like when it
Mhm.
comes to film franchises, that would be my favorite film
Mhm.
franchise of all time. And I'd probably have Star Wars, at least the original six
Mhm.
movies. I'd probably
Mhm.
have that up there as number two. Um, uh, I, I'd probably have the original Rocky up in
Mhm.
there. as one of my favorite. And then maybe it's because of recency bias, but Top Gun Maverick would be
It's
up in
really
my
good.
list.
It's actually a great movie.
Really
Yeah,
liked that one. Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan would be around there. I mean, I know I'm going more than 5, but
that's fine.
a lot of these are interchangeable. Just depending on what type of mood you're in. The Dark Knight, Batman Begins, I think are both really great movies. Um, Jaws is a great movie. So
Do a
there's a
Jurassic
lot of
Park
good.
in there.
You know what? I would definitely have that up there somewhere. It's again not one of my top favorite, but it would
Mhm,
be pretty close. It'd
mhm.
probably be just outside of that because that is a classic movie. I remember going to see that in theaters when it first came out, and I was just floored by the special effects, and it was a really good story to top it off, and
Do you
great
know?
acting performances. Sam Neill is
Mhm,
great in that. Jeff Goldblum,
mhm.
I love him in that movie.
What's crazy, man, is there's one superhero movie out there that I just don't have the love for that a lot of people do, and that's Batman '89. I've watched it several times. I watched it when I was about 12 years old. I watched it one time. Back in the day, the Channel 5 used to just play the old DC classics at
Right,
like
right, right.
noon. I watched it and I was like, man, this is just not as good as everyone kept saying it was. I wasn't hyped at all to see it based off what people had said, but everyone was like, man, this is so good. I was like, I watched this, I was like, this is not good. This is really just meh. I think it's
You know,
mediocre. I don't think it's bad. The second one, I do not like the Penguin one. That one is bad. I watched it like
well,
3 times. I like Danny DeVito. He's a great Penguin. Michelle Pfeiffer's a great Catwoman, but that movie is not good.
yeah, you know what? I don't think that the films have aged as well as what
Some
a
people
lot
will
of people
tell
do.
you,
Now,
yeah.
I still have a fondness for Batman '89, but I would put Batman Begins, The Dark Knight.
Mhm.
Um, Heck, for me personally, I'd even put the Batman ahead of it. So as
Oh, I
far
would
as
too. Yeah.
I think all of those are better films. And
You could
again,
I would
I
put
still
Massive
like
Phantasm.
Batman '89, but
Yeah.
it's not one of those where I'm just like, oh, this is the best Batman
This
film.
this
And
is
I
absolute
know a lot of
cinema.
people still have a fondness for Keaton as being the best
Yeah,
Batman, but my personal favorite would be Christian Bell.
yeah, it's my
He
yeah.
was my favorite. And if you're wanting to talk comic accuracy or just accuracy, you can't get a better representation of the look for of Batman the animated series than what Ben Affleck was. I mean,
Yeah,
he looks like a live action animated or a version of the animated Bruce Wayne from Batman the animated series.
yeah, I would put because Mask of the Phantasm came out when those movies were like in their biggest hype period. I would have Mask of Phantasm over all the Tim Burton and the other
I would
movies
too.
that, yeah, like that Mask of Phantasm destroys '89. It's not even close, for being honest here, of a movie. For life of me, I just couldn't understand why people enjoyed that. I was like, this is kind of bad. I don't mind Tim Burton, but I think the first one is saved by Jack Nicholson. But the second one, I rewatched it. I watched it once and I rewatched it for a Batman project I did before the Robert Pattinson one came out. I was like,
Mhm.
man, I cannot get through these. I was sleeping on these watch. I was like, man, these are bad, man. I
Yeah,
couldn't
they're
even do
just
Batman and Robin. That was just
yeah,
worthless trash.
they just didn't age well, unfortunately, at least not for
Mhm.
me. Now, again, I know a lot of people have fondness for them, and I still have a fondness for Batman
Yeah,
'89.
I can
I
respect
did,
them for the attempts. Yeah,
but at the same time, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that it's somehow better than The Dark Knight or Batman Begins, or like I said, even the Batman. I thought the Batman was better.
there was let's see. Okay, so let's about the DCEU. Let's start with Man of Steel. Did you
All
like
right.
Man of Steel?
I liked Man of Steel, but I understand why it was a divisive film. A lot of
Okay.
like my friend, one of the ones that I do the podcast
Mhm.
with, he hated Man of Steel, and to this day he still hates Man of Steel, and we'll have arguments over it. But the one thing we do both agree on is that Henry Cavill was well casted for that role. It just we have disagreements about the movie now, and for me, it's one of those where I just like it as a movie, but I understand it is not the Superman that everybody thinks of,
Mhm.
and so for that reason, I can understand why it is a divisive film. I think they tried
Mhm.
to make him brighter when it came to Justice League. I
Mhm.
But by then, a lot of the damage had already been done,
Yeah.
and I was fine with him being kind of a more of a brooding type character for Man of Steel. But I think by the sequel, when you got to Batman v Superman, there I think he should have been more uplifting and more hopeful. That way, you could contrast him with Batman. And instead you got two brooding characters there.
What about BVS? Did you like that one?
I liked the ultimate cut better than I did the theatrical cut.
I
don't know
saw
if you've
both.
seen.
Yeah, the ultimate
Yeah,
cut is a little bit better to me. The
yes,
theatrical cut, if you don't have the pleasure or displeasure of seeing that garbage in the movie theaters, God, that was bad.
yeah. The
That was
theatrical cut is
rough.
not that good of a film. The ultimate cut is better because it does put in stuff that gives you a little bit more of Superman, as well as it answers some simple questions, even
Yeah,
like for example, where the bomb went off when he was when he appeared before Congress. A lot of people
yeah,
were like, "Oh, how is it that he didn't see the bomb?" Well, in the ultimate cut, they explained that the wheelchair was made out of lead. Just something.
yeah.
It was like
But
10 seconds
people
thrown
should
back
know
in.
that. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
how you tell people on comic fans. It's all he can't see through lead. It's always been that way with him.
yeah.
You know?
But since they never explained that in the
Yeah.
theatrical cut, it's one of those. It's one of those things. It's just an example of something they threw back in there, and it's typical Snyder having his Snyder cut. But yeah, BVS I was okay with, but it's not because it's a good movie. It should have been so much better than what it was. Again, I like the ultimate cut better. I think it's a downgrade from Man of Steel.
Suicide Squad?
I did not like Suicide
I don't
Squad.
think anybody did. Wonder Woman?
Wonder Woman I liked, especially the first two
Yeah.
thirds of it. The last act, I think it struggled a little bit because the whole appearance of Ares and everything.
Yeah.
I think it just kind of. I understand that that's what it was building up towards, but it just felt
The
like
reveal
almost a
of
different
the
movie.
it's because the actor they chose to do the Ares, you
Oh,
know?
okay, yeah, you're probably not wrong there.
He didn't I don't know, he just didn't give off Ares god destruction level kind of feeling. If in the third act, since that was supposed to be the big reveal, it kind of sounds like she went with like this big CGI spectacle rather than kind of keeping it to that like mythology of the Amazons and the gods
Right.
fighting each other. Because I think some of the third act works very well. I think it's just the reveal. If the reveal is better with Ares, I think it hits way better. That actor they chose, he's not bad, but like Ares being a buff, destructive god. No, he's got a porn mustache, dude. No way. I can't believe it. I can't do it.
No, yeah, you're not wrong. The actor itself, they could have casted a better actor, but the film itself I liked, and the only thing I have besides the third act is I don't think that they showcased her power set quite as well as, say, like the Snyder cut. If you watch the Snyder cut of Justice League, especially in that sequence where is it at? Where those kids are being held hostage and she saves the kids. You see her power set really good, and then when she's fighting the villain Steppenwolf, you see a lot. I think Snyder handled her power set better than what Patty Jenkins did. Now, but one thing that I liked, this whole fish out of water type thing where she's very naive to the ways of the world and everything like that. I thought that worked very well. She was very charming in that, and Chris Pine played very well opposite of her. I liked Wonder Woman.
What was after that? Well, there's the Josh Whedon Justice League, and that is in and of itself. You know what's crazy? The only good parts in that movie is the very end when they're all like spurting off, and she gives Amy Adams gives that little speech. I thought that was actually genuinely good. Other than that, I think that movie's just terrible. That movie's just straight up bad.
I think I've watched that twice. I watched it in theaters, and then I watched it once with my kids later when it came out to Blu-ray and DVD, and they wanted to watch it, and I haven't seen it since. Now, the Snyder Cut I've seen a few times. And it's funny because when I saw the Snyder Cut and they released it, my son, who I watched Justice League with back when that first came out, was he watched it with me, and within 5 minutes of the movie, we both just kind of looked at each other, and we're just kind of like, all right, this is much better. This is much better.
Because I remember watching Justice League in theater too. I remember having that end credit scene of Deathstroke as Joe Manganiello, and you're like, Lex Luthor. They did nothing with it. Like after that, this is what they should have did. You remember the controversy that happened at the time? Why didn't they just let him finish the movie, put it out, and then if they thought the universe was really that bad and unsalvageable, why not just restart over? Then take a few years off, restart over. But they didn't because they wanted their Christmas bonuses before the AT&T merger. It's always been corporate greed with these fucking idiots. Like, they let go other great DC shows as well back in the day. Other great shows got canceled. The Teen Titans show, the Justice League shows, all that stuff. They've been horribly mismanaged for years. I can't believe all that stuff they've ever had success. It was all luck. All of it's luck. They're stupid. They're actually retarded. You people are dumb. I was surprised. Do you get lucky that many times? To be fair, it is different people doing it every single time. So that's kind of 50-50 in of itself. They've gotten so lucky in their entire corporate history. There's just no, like, coming after it now, AT&T were like, yeah, we can't salvage this. Keep in mind, Warner Bros. Is owned by a telecommunications company. That's how you know shit was fucked. They were like, you know what, David Zaslav, you can have it. And then David Zazav's like, you know what? I don't know if I want this either. This is too many problems.
Yeah, he just started cutting everything. So yeah, and I agree with you. They should have just let him finish it, because at that point, like, nobody who has seen the Snyder Cut and seen the version that released, I don't understand how anybody could think that version that released to theaters was a better option than the Snyder Cut. And I'm not saying that Snyder's perfect or anything like that, because I've already said I understand why Man of Steel was divisive, and Batman v Superman had a lot of problems with. But the Snyder Cut itself, I think, is a pretty good film for the most part. And there's no way anybody in their right mind could have thought that the theatrical version was better. It's almost like when they cut him from the project, because obviously, the tragedy happened, with his daughter and everything. And they saw that as their opportunity to replace him and make something else. It's almost like once Joss Whedon was done filming the reshoots, it was kind of like, all right, just slap it together. Let's get it out in theaters. And that's what we got. We just got a film that was just kind of thrown together, and it looks terrible. It's edited terrible. Just some of the decisions on it, like having the Flash, what was it? He pushed, a car out of the way. That was about all he did the entire time. Where at least in the Snyder Cut, he was given something very heroic to do.
Yeah, and I think the big problem with, like, what it was mostly off the back of Warner Brothers. I do blame Zack Snyder for, because he's supposed to be the Kevin Feige of their entire thing. They really put a lot of trust in him because he had a lot of goodwill with Watchmen. Actually, Watchmen, despite it being a financial success, to be fair, back then the inflation was a lot different, so it might have been a decent success. He had a lot of goodwill, and to be fair, Matthew Vaughn, who directed First Class, he didn't want to do the whole "I want to build the whole universe" thing, and they asked Christopher Nolan to do it. He didn't want to do it. Obviously, he had success with the Dark Knight trilogy, and it's one of those things where if they wanted their universe to look and feel a certain way, that should be communicated with Zack. Now, if he's like, I don't want to do that, then you just don't pick him.
Exactly.
It's just really how it goes. I do put more of the fault on them, because at the end of the day, they're the ones with the money. They're the ones with the ideas of where they want the universe to be. And the universe was already starting off on a back foot too. Zack wanted a movie where the Batman is already a finished career. Now, to be fair, it is based on The Dark Knight Returns, as you know, which is written by Frank Miller. But the reason why that comic book can't hit as hard initially up front is because if you're trying to get new people to invest into a universe, well, why would you have a character whose career is already finished? That's counterintuitive, and that's stupid. Like, it could work if it was written very well, which it clearly was not. The movie's pretty bad. And Zack doesn't even like understand how comics even work for the most part, as far as like why characters do a certain thing, why they act a certain way. It's just it was already going to be bad from the foundation up when you already have characters finishing their careers initially up front, especially Batman. Like, you want to see the journey of the character. Doesn't matter if it's done over and over again,
Right. No, I completely agree with you. The way that it should have been done is they should have followed the Marvel blueprint. You give one character a movie, then the next character a movie, another character a movie, and instead they tried to shoehorn everything in together. They started with Man of Steel, which again was a divisive film, but I mean, it's a solid start in that it's a solo movie for one character. And then they start the next one and they bring Batman into it. They bring Wonder Woman into it. Then they have cameos of the other characters in it when Bruce Wayne's watching the video of all the other characters. And then next thing you know, the next step is Justice League. It's like they went from 0 to 100 without any sort of progression. And it didn't work. They tried everything too fast. And then like you said, they had the wrong guy for the job. And they could have easily just watched a Zack Snyder movie and you would have known that those are how his movies are. It's not like it's just Watchmen that way. All of his movies are that way. So it's not like it was a surprise.
It wasn't like they were going in blind to this guy. They've worked with this guy for many years. He was on 300. He was on Watchmen. I think he did that random animated bird movie for them or some shit. So it wasn't like he's just some random. They clearly know who he is. This is why the company's stupid and they're full of idiots. It's literally their fault it failed. They try to have some cutesy stuff with like Jeff Johns and Kevin Feige collabing, which never happened at all. That was stupid. Like the whole universe was doomed to fail because the foundation of the universe was bad. The ideas were terrible. This is a universe you look back on, and Batman had no solo movie. Superman had like a solo and a collaborational movie,
right?
I guess. Superman's just not in the franchise at all anymore after Justice League movie. Wonder Woman had more films than both of them. Her second one that doesn't even count as a film.
Oh god, that's an awful movie.
That was just bad. Like, it was a horribly built universe. Like, Birds of Prey was a movie. That might have been one of the worst I've ever seen in my entire life. Harley Quinn was catching up to a speeding car on roller skates. Shit. Fuck me. That's why people said, "Oh, well, James Gunn, good." The whole universe is terrible. Yeah, the only way to salvage that is to restart. There's nothing salvaging that trash.
I'm all for them restarting it. Just start fresh and let's see what we can get. It can't be any worse than maybe it could be.
It literally can't be anything worse than what we got before. It literally can't.
I don't think that it can be worse because what we got was it was so hit or miss with that. I mean, like Aquaman, whether you like the film or not, you can't deny that it was a success financially. Man of Steel, I liked it. I mean, people are split on that, but it was very hit or miss, mostly miss. And it's a good idea just to let James Gunn redo it. He's got some goodwill from Guardians. I liked those movies. Let's see what he can do with this. Mm-hmm. And I didn't think Peacemaker was too bad, but I'm hoping that Superman is definitely not that style.
Yeah, I think the Superman movie coming up, I have hope he'll do a good Superman movie. I mean, so I have not seen Guardians 3, but I have seen all the other things he's done. So I've seen Guardians 1, 2, I've seen Suicide Squad and Peacemaker. Guardians 2 is weaker than the first movie, but I didn't hate it. I thought it was fine.
Yeah.
I liked Suicide Squad. I liked what he did with Peacemaker. I thought those were great properties, honestly. I don't know why people don't have more faith in him. He's did only but good superhero stuff for a lot of people. It's so weird how he did 5 good projects in a row. But people are like, I don't know about the Superman one. It's like, okay, guys, he really clearly most qualified to do it from just his resume alone. But I get it. From his style, he does like to prefer more of a comedic tone. But I will argue, people, in Peacemaker, episode 6, I think it was the finale, he showed Peacemaker breaking down in a very serious manner when he killed his dad. He can do serious moments. It's just, hopefully this movie's going to have a lot more of those serious tones because it's a lot more of a different style of movie.
That's exactly their people's apprehension for it is his style. He does have a flair for the comedic, and when people think of Superman, the blueprint has always been the Richard Donner Superman. People always will go back to the 1978 Superman and be like, okay, that's your blueprint. That's how Superman should feel. And so that's what people are hoping that James Gunn can deliver. And I think that's why people are apprehensive because his style is so different from that. Now, I did hear that he was taking inspiration from a lot of what came before. And so hopefully it pays off, but I'm hopeful to see where it goes. I do like the fact that he's wanting to give us a Batman that actually has a Robin. And so, I'm actually
a Robin animated origin, and that's what I like that James Gunn is doing. He's utilizing animation, video games, all that stuff. Like we're gonna have finally a shared universe. Yeah, right. Some of the ideas I'm not too on board with yet, but you know what? I hope there's nothing he can do worse than what they already did before. There's no way.
Right, I'm going to give it a chance. I mean, if I could give the Acolyte and if I could give Agatha a chance, I can give
James Gunn Superman a chance. The guy that put out Guardians 1. He's pretty sure he gets a little bit more benefit of the doubt than Acolyte.
Absolutely.
I know you have to go in a little bit. Last few things I'll ask you, which is, do you have anything planned coming up in 2024, leading into 2025 that you want to let the audience know about?
Nothing really planned. Just the 2 channels. the over on my main channel, the easiest way to find me, instead of trying to look up was it good, because you're gonna get everything. But
If you
just to
type in
look up,
"was it good" in the internet, oh
yeah,
my gosh.
just look up Bob Loves Movies, just all
Mhm,
one word. That's the easiest way to find me, and you'll see my logo for Was It Good pop up.
mhm.
The only reason I picked that as a name, I thought it was pretty simple. Was it good? So that's why I came up with that. And then, like I said, I have another channel with a couple of my friends, and we do a show called Dad's Turn to Talk. And the idea of that show was that it was three dads who deal with significant others, work, kids, stuff all day long,
Yeah.
and and now we're getting our opportunity to talk about the things that we want to talk about once a week. And so, we talk about the same type of stuff, movies, television, but we also talk sports and other things. And we spend a lot of the time making fun of each other and going after each other. But we have a good time, and so that's pretty much all we got going on.
And the last thing I'll ask you, man, is there any shout outs you want to give to anyone in particular and any closing statements or thoughts you have before we end the show?
Uh, well, shout outs to my two friends that
Mhm,
do the show with me. I have a lot of fun with them. Josh and Derek. Uh, they're my two friends. I'm glad to have them with me on this journey. And then also Lily at 300 Mirrors over on X. She's been really cool to me. I've known her for a couple years now, and she's helped give me advice as I've been getting my channel started and stuff like that.
mhm.
And she's come on Dad's Turn to Talk about 3 times now, and she had me and the guys over on Dames and Dorks. And so we appreciate her. I've always thought real highly of her, and always appreciate the advice she can give me as far as when it comes to this type of stuff. Because I'm like I said, I only started this in February, so this is all brand new to me. So any
Yeah.
advice that people give me, I'm willing to listen to it and see what I can utilize and make my channel better.
After you get about a year in, I'll let you know the real harsh truth.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, it's like a kid going to school. I imagine it's like you let them kind of figure out how like different kids work, how the world works, and when they get enough experience, they're like, you know what, Dad, I got to talk to you. Like, let's just get the beer out, you know.
But I've had a lot of positive feedback, and then when somebody says, "Hey, you know what? I think you should try this," or somebody says, "Hey, you know what? That was really cool. I like that you reviewed this." So I try to review more movies, kind of like that, and be open to reviewing different types of stuff. For example, some of my best responses have been on faith-based films or television shows. So I've been willing to review some of
Mhm.
those because that audience was good to me, and willing to continue reviewing some of that stuff.
Well, I just want to say thank you to Was It Good, aka Bob, for appearing on the MSK show, and it was great talking to
Well,
you, man, for the first
thank you
time.
for having me. It was a
Anytime,
pleasure.
man. Yeah, can't wait to do it again in a few more months when you get a lot more experience under your belt. So, thank you guys for checking out this episode of the MSK Show.